Pensado's Place is brought to you by
We've got real 3D in the studio. No need for glasses on this one. A brand new ITL. Gear Expo is here, baby. We're going to rock
Yes.
it. You're at the place. It's Pensado's Place.
What's up, everybody? Good to have you back. Great week. I'm excited. I think I wet my pants. No, I can't. We got the Pens endorsement already.
So we're starting right out with TMI. Just too much information right from the top.
Adult diapers are wonderful things, man.
I don't know anything about them, but I'm glad you
Our
do.
guest today is one that turned me on. I was asking him how he could mix for 24 straight hours without going to the bathroom. He says adult diapers. So we'll get into that.
We did have a great week. Want to talk a little bit about what we did yesterday?
Man, we were at Sound City, and our host, Kevin Algunas, was just magnanimous. He was just, I think I went Mike Tyson on that one, didn't I? I'm not sure if that's the right use. It was so much history, so much fun. Like, you walked in, Herb, remember? And the smell was like, it made you think, I don't know how to describe it. The smell was perfect. The way Kevin restored the place is perfect. Mike and Andrew from Vintage King were it was just a great moment. And we'll share that with our audience soon.
We will share it. We will not only share it, you will find a very interesting art form in the way recording is done by Kevin Agunas out of that studio and how it can help your craft. It is a one-of-a-kind look. Thanks to Mike and Andrew from Vintage King, a really good thing. We got a lot of information. Can we get to it? Great. Hey, guys, great to see you. We're back. We've been off for a minute. Thanks for hanging with us with all the different start times and stuff. We've been nuts. So let's get to it. We're coming to you live from the Art Institute of California, Los Angeles.
Yes.
From our beautiful HD studio, which of course stands for
Home Depot.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I can stock a Home Depot. I'll challenge anybody out there. I'll meet you at a Home Depot. You say when, and I can stock the thing.
So we might do
And I'll
that.
go you double nothing blindfolded.
Okay, we might do that on Saturday.
Some Home Depot.
We'll do a little stocking demo on Saturday.
Yeah. And if I don't get a job there, I'm working at Fry's.
Okay.
I love Fry's. I can stock a Fry's too.
So now back to the matters at hand. Hello to our friends at Avid. As always, we actually have Nick in the studio today.
Yeah,
We've got some good stuff, special programming coming from them in August. And then to our Vintage King family. We spent time with them yesterday with Andrew and Mike and Chevy and the team. We got a lot going on. Do you have a Stump the VK Guy question?
I do. Why did they choose 1176 for the address instead of 33609, 1073? I'm wondering why Jeffrey chose that building. Why didn't he choose a building that was 1073?
So we'll get you that answer, and we'll find out. We might actually.
And the reason this is of relevance is because at 1176 Sunset, right? There's some great things going to be happening this weekend.
There sure are.
Relevant. So don't go to 33609 Sunset.
Don't
go to 1073 Sunset.
That's right.
I am being really silly today.
That's all right. You get to do that.
Well,
so let's talk about Saturday. Why don't we do that?
Let's do that.
It is here. I got to tell you guys, the response to Gear Expo has been amazing. We are excited. Last count, when I talked to the team, probably folks from 10 or 12 different countries. We're going to have an absolute ball. You got to be there. Remember, here's some very simple stuff. If you emailed in, you are good to go. It's as simple as that. If you emailed in, arrive. Here's the details. Saturday, July 20th, 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Get there early. You can go to our landing page, get all the information, pensadosplace.tv/Gear Expo. It'll be beneath me. Make sure you go to there. Quick update. We've capped off our guests. Last week when we left the show, made a couple calls, thrilled to say Manny American is going to join us and make this just a killer lineup. Think about it. Manny American, Alex the Kid, Ryan Hewitt, Stephen Slate, Robert Duncan from Castle, the TV show, Francois Tatage, Rodney Jerkins, Sidebrain and Paul Detaw. I mean, come on.
Man. Hey guys, do me a favor. Go to these guys' Facebook page and light them up. Make them happy that they're doing this. They're taking. These guys get $5-6 grand a day. Some of these guys get 20, 30, 100 grand a day to write a song, and they're spending the afternoon with you. Light it up. Make them feel that you really care, and thank them for coming out and helping us out.
Absolutely, because they all agreed to do it with just a call. It's what they think about you in the community. They love us, we love them, so they are absolutely giving their time, so come enjoy. But it's not just our guests, our sponsors as well. Absolutely just as cool. Isotope, big fans of ours.
Yeah.
McDSP, Gobbler. Ableton is stepping up so big with Paul Detaw, with Sidebrain. We're excited about that. Echo Park Guitars, SAE, Ron Dixon and his badass from Studio 202. Not yet, Dave. Women's Audio Mission. Ladies, make sure you're there, not just because of Women's Audio Mission, because you have a place in this community. We want to see you there. We want you to join with us and, bring your girlfriends, and guys, bring your significant others. Let's do your thing. Our man Kamran V is in here with Bedrock, setting everything up for us. Our folks at the Grammys, producer and engineers wings. Infrasonic Mastering is going to show some sessions up there. Dorado. There's lots of gear reps flying in. It is a party, and you need to be there. Yeah. So, you know what? Let's show the gift bags that we're going to have. Dave's showing them backwards. So, along with that stuff, there's going to be a bunch of fun things. First of all, you're at a world-class facility, Vintage King LA, the baddest gear ever. You get to hang and talk, take pictures with a lot of your guests. There's going to be food and vinyl trucks and DJ performances, mastering demos. You can pose and snap yourself, tag and post those pictures. Whew, a lot of stuff. Schools, we're going to do a roll call at 1 o'clock. We're going to get you a prize, so make sure you're there because Dave's going to call it out. And like we have gift bags and swag. You want to show the gift bag, please?
The hottest gear expo of the summer.
Okay, show that to the camera. Very good. Thank you, Dave. Vanna White. So, off we go. Listen, before we get to the show, let me just say something really quickly. For Dave and I both, a massive, huge shout out to Chevy, Dude Shevlin, our boy Leslie Mendez and Susan Syme for being amazing partners, amazing teammates. When you see him at Gear Expo and you see them, give them a shout out. They are big time Pensadian. This would not have happened. It came out of this noggin, but could not have happened without them. So we love them. We birthed this thing. Gear Expo Saturday, we'll see you there. Dave, throw the ITL. Let's get to the show.
The show should be over. Good night. Drive safe. Don't forget to tip your waitress. God, that was a lot of stuff, Herb. Did you breathe during that?
No.
Okay, this week's Into the Lair is, I revisited a little reverb concept. I think you'll like it. Check it out. On episode 117, Al Schmidt mentioned that he would take some of the mono live chambers at Capitol and he would space them and spread them out across the stereo spectrum. He'd put one hard left, one hard right, one in the middle, and a couple in between those spaces. I was thinking about that and I thought, whoa, what a great idea. So I came up with this idea based on what Al said in episode 117. And let me share that with you, okay? So what we've got a lead vocal and a double. I'm gonna play them both. The only effects, this is a compression, parallel compression chain. The only effects we've got going are the three reverbs. So what I've done is here, these purple ones are my returns. I've got a spring reverb, that's this guy right here. If you'll notice, it's panned mono right up the middle. Deverb, I've got it panned to the left right here. And then you can see nothing special. And then a plugin that comes with Pro Tools. I think it works better with less expensive sounding plugins. I'm not saying all these plugins sound inexpensive, but it doesn't have to be like a real expensive reverb to do this. So we've got our spring reverb mono in the middle. We've got one of these reverbs hard left, the other hard right. Of course, you could use mono for all these returns. And let's check it out without any of these returns. So this is my vocal.
Woke up and I had fallen.
So let's check it out without any of these reverbs on. This is my vocal right here that you see highlighted, leading a double. Here we go.
Woke up and I had fallen. My heart, your name was calling.
I love her voice. Okay, now let's turn just the spring on, okay? So now the spring. Where's my sin? Here's my sin to the spring.
Woke up and I had fallen.
Okay. There's my left reverb.
Woke up and I had fallen.
Sweet, huh? Here's my right reverb.
Woke up and I had fallen.
Da-da-da-da-da-da. Here's all of them.
Woke up and I had fallen. My heart, your name was calling.
Let me set it up so I can A-B it for you real quick, okay? Okay, here we go.
Woke up and I had fallen. My heart, your name was calling. Woke up and I had fallen.
I think that's pretty cool, guys. Now, there's just so many more things we can do with this. Cole Nystrom, my assistant, just said, what if you do some widening, do some, make some of these reverb returns a little wider, put a spatial thing on them. Also, you could take and add to this group of 3 returns, add a stereo delay, maybe put 14 milliseconds on one side, 18 on the other, and pan the 2 stereo reverbs, send the 2 stereo reverbs to the opposite side of the delay return. So we've got the left reverb, and we're adding a little bit of delay on the right-hand side of the mix, and then do the opposite with the right-hand reverb, bring the delay back on the left a little bit. That'll have a tendency to widen things out. Now, you don't have to have a spring mono reverb in the middle. If you remember, Tom Elmhurst, I think, said it, and Justin Niebank, they talked about mono spring reverb. So check it out. This is one way to do it. There's a million ways to do it, but I think Al Schmidt's arguably just one of the greatest ever. And if he says to try something, let's try it. All right, next time.
Hey guys, glad you make sure that you pay attention to that ITL. Dave has worked and we've recorded a bunch of new ones, right? Mm-hmm. that are going to be really cool. Use that for your purposes and increase your craft. We are really happy to welcome back a returning champ, right? A good friend of ours. His nickname is 3D. There's some history we'll talk about in a minute, but welcome to our desk, the incredible Dylan Dresdow.
Dylan.
How are you, bro?
Thank you. I'm doing great.
Good to see you, man. Good to see you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Dave, hit it.
Dylan, I was sitting here listening to This Is a Love, which I think that's an incredible mix. Love the song, love the video, love everything about it. And sometimes when I'm preparing for the show, I try to think what would I have done, you know? And it seemed to me when you started that there was a big, huge problem to solve. You're going to have to mix this thing for radio and club at the same time, right?
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot. That was one of the.
That's hard to do.
We had some singles that came out before then, but that was really the first single for the record, and so you're at the early stage of the process, which is kind of a big question mark. Where do we want this record to go? Are we mixing for radio? Are we mixing for club? Are we mixing for laptops? And with an artist like will.i.am, who's extremely creative, he's a very forward-thinking person. He thinks outside of the box and then some.
It always has.
Yeah, it's difficult because sometimes I don't know if we even know whenever we're working on it. And there were several different non-linear ways of working on that particular track, which worked to our benefit because, we kind of knew where we wanted to go even before, after we had started, but then before we were finished because of how we did do things in a non-linear way. One of the things that Will really consciously pushed us for was, instead of going analog, blah, 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 and being, so true to the, craft of that, saying, look, there are these kids doing these things with laptops that are blowing us away.
Yeah.
we can't have that. So how are we going to do this? Well, let's start by bypassing this SSL console and doing things in a more similar way to how they do that. Whenever you limit yourself in that way, you can free yourself up in other ways creatively. And that was a big part of it where when you listen to the record as a whole, I think you can kind of hear where you're like, man, this is a really crushed record in certain ways, or there's distortion. All of that stuff is intentional, every little bit of that. So if it sounds like a mistake, we put that there just to kind of make sure that we were like true to the kids with laptops.
Let me stop you real quick. Dylan's my best friend, and so what he's saying is true, because we spent a lot of late nights on the phone talking about this issue, didn't we?
Oh, yeah.
But man, you mastered it. Hashtag Willpower is an incredible record. I mean, I think it's your best work. I really do.
Thanks, man.
And start to finish is spectacular. So give me some hints in terms of how do you mix it for radio and club at the same time, because they're two different concepts. I mean,
well, for starters,
did you dilute one and enhance the other, or did you?
There are some areas where you can get away with things and other areas where you can't. One example is in the live room that I had set up. We were at Record Plant for quite a while working on most of the record. And in the live room that I had actually set up PA speakers and fed out to them. Now, a lot of engineers use this for like a
Explain
chamber.
it to our audience that's not familiar with that.
Sometimes what happens is you take a feed and you send it out to some speakers that are in a live room. And you can send a snare drum out there, and then you set up 2 microphones, and now your snare drum has this natural reverb. They have chambers specifically designed for this.
You bring the mics back into Pro Tools and you record those.
Yep.
And so now you add that back into the original snare.
Now, but instead of doing that, we were just sending audio out into the live room to get a club vibe. I literally had lasers and smoke machines out in our live room because we're mixing. We're not.
Did you really?
Yeah,
How
the only.
cool is that?
I mean, we still had a vocal booth set up so we could do overdubs if we needed to, but when there were times whenever we would walk out in the live room, and I had hooked up my iPad to control Pro Tools, so I would just hit play and stop or wherever I wanted. And I would walk around and just kind of try to imagine myself in a club, like what's this going to be like in a club atmosphere. The other side of it is, laptops speak. And, when a really good glaring example of this that I can kind of point out, one of the songs that made the record is called Bang Bang. This is also on the Great Gatsby soundtrack. And when we mastered this record, Will really wanted to push for levels that were competitive with what the kids are doing these days, which is really loud, high RMS levels. So if you listen to the Great Gatsby, that particular song is going to have RMS levels that are way more extreme than a lot of the tracks on there. I encourage you to listen to it so you can hear exactly what I'm talking about. Now, when we go to Brian Gardner, who's known for being, Big Bass is known to be this loud mastering engineer. Yeah. And we would bring stuff over there and then we would get it back and listen, and we had to do changes. That gave us an opportunity to adjust. So if we were losing all of the transients on our kick drum, then we could maybe add a little bit of extra tick in there that if you listen to it by itself is like, man, that's too much. But by the time it came out of the mastering process, we got our attack back. So there was a big benefit for us working in this non-linear way. A lot of times I mix a song and normally that's it. It's done, send it off to mastering, and you're finished. Well, with Will, that would influence him to do something different, and he just is a very creative person. Yeah. And it's best to encourage that. I mean, not that he needs it. He just gets in there and does his thing. So he'll track on top of that, which is a challenge because you've mixed the song thinking all the spaces are filled in. Now we've added something. Well, that's going to pop a bubble up over here that you push down, which is going to pop a bubble up over here. And you just have to massage things down to where they start to sound really good. And they're true to the vision of the artist. And you, as an engineer, that's very difficult to do because sometimes you want to do what's right. Exactly. I had to break those barriers. Like I worked with Wu-Tang Clan a long time ago, and you got to break all the rules when you're working.
There are no rules.
And so it was a very similar thing. Like, man, distortion is okay, but let's make sure that it's intentional sounding and it doesn't sound like it was a mistake.
Right. One of the things that caught my ear, again, when I was listening to it a couple of days ago, by listening to it, This Is the Love, you used auto-tune not as a T-Pain effect, but to enhance the top end of the vocal and help my ear find it in a very, very complex mix. That was pretty genius, man. Yeah. That was really cool.
The credit for this really goes to Will, to be honest with you, because we could have taken auto-tune off of a lot of that stuff and just left it as is, and it would have had a little bit more vibe. But again, we're not trying to sound like Marvin Gaye with this type of record. Right. No disrespect to any of that craft, but what we were going for was not even on that target. It was we were going for something completely different. Will had basically come up with an idea to use auto-tune, not just as that, but to have it bring out some presence on the vocal, but also to fill in. And what I mean by that is using it like a harmonizer, similar to what we would have done back in the day with, for example, some Eventide 910 units, or you pitch shift one up and one down, and then you pan them hard left and hard right. You can hear that on the record on a lot of the vocals, and it fills it in. Now, we're not using doubler effects. Right. We're not actually doubling it or Tupacing it. We didn't want to do it. Yeah, like it's a lot of the records these days. Whenever you double yourself, you sound dated, and we can't have that, especially whenever. We've talked about this before. If you mimic what's out there right now, you're already a year behind. Because if you're mimicking what's on the radio that was done 6 months ago, well, you're down 6 months. And if you do it now and your record comes out 6 months later, you are literally a year behind. Yep. So Will has always had his finger on that pulse and been forward thinking so that we make sure we don't fall into those traps. And I think he did it really well. I think
it's really well done. I think I'm gonna rip it off. So there you go. On Eva's vocal, man, that girl can sing. Yeah. It's interesting the way you treated that, because you've got the star who's responsible for a chunk of your income, followed by this singer who has to lift the song. Now, you've got Will play so perfectly, and he's as good as he's ever sounded. And so when Eva comes in, I'm thinking, okay, how's he gonna do this? And man, you pulled it off. She sounds huge. The song lifts. I'm going straight to iTunes to buy it. How did you get her to cut like that and to just? I mean, and then you see combined with the video, and it's like an amazing.
Yeah, I love the moment too. I mean, Will was a real perfectionist with this song. He re-recorded his own takes many times. Eva, she is just a great singer, and for dance music, she's just incredible. Not much needs to really be done with her. And that goes back to an engineer having self-control. We wanted to slap compressors and EQs on every channel. We would just want to do that. There's a blank channel. We must put something on it for some reason.
That's illegal.
You got to listen to things and be objective and say, well, look, this is right. Now, we went through a bunch of different stages with that track. We had different vocalists, different collaborators and things. So whenever she came in, it was like, man, this is the final version. This is awesome. In terms of treatment on her, a lot of the similar effects were used so that there was a tie-in between Will and her, and there wasn't like a weird train wreck of,
That's interesting.
I didn't want it to sound like a remix or like we kind of sampled her and put it on there. It had to be cohesive. Aside from that, I love EMT, the UAD EMT 250 plugin on female vocals specifically. I love the way the edges fold in really nicely. It's a real easy, plug-in for me to kind of make things subtle whenever I want it, or to bring things out a little bit more whenever.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You did an Into the Lair segment for us a while back, in which you showed how to do a reverse echo. That's the same thing you did on this song. If they go back and check that out, you did it on this song.
Yeah. If you go back to the Into the Lair, that is exactly how we put the reverse reverb intro on Will's vocal coming into the whole thing. And over on the ITL, we do talk about put a flanger on top of it, or don't, or do something to make it unique. So don't just copy and make it your own. Right. Unless you copy it and you're like, this is perfection, it's not going to get any better. Then just do that. But I do believe that we can push our craft forward if we do something more unique every time we do something.
And I can sense the internet's got about 10 million people wanting to know about that kick drum. Give me some deep insight into how I can get that kick drum sound.
The main thing with the kick was making sure that it was going to cut after we went through the mastering process. And Brian being put in a position where he needs to make his RMS levels really, really loud, that's a challenge, because every time that kick comes in, you might get some kind of distortion that you don't want, or you're going to lose your transient or your punch. And he did a really, really good job making sure that he got the best of both worlds with that. But like I said, whenever we did get things back, the SPL, just the simple little attacker plugin, not even the transient, which is basically half of the transient designer plugin.
You're
That's
talking
all.
just the top knob.
Yeah, yeah. That's all that I used.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I mean, we're in a stage now where we have these electronic dance producers. Like a lot of the DJs these days, they make their own music essentially, and so they're a different animal than they
They're
were.
very different.
You know,
Personalities too.
yeah, and a lot of them, you know, one of the things that I love is instead of taking whatever kick drum and throwing it into a song and then trying to EQ it and mult it and do all these different things and just beating the hell out of it to try to make it sound like something it's not, they start with really good sounds. And whenever that happens, sometimes you don't need to augment them that much. And sometimes you need to do something a bit more extreme. That one, everything sounded really, really good. The biggest concern for me was having the attack translate, whether you're in a, because that kick drum specifically I wanted to make sure was going to sound good on a laptop and a nightclub on the local radio station.
Do you remember, because I know you've done a million songs since then, but do you remember, was it just one sample or was it a combination of things? Like was it like 3 or 4 that you combined?
No, it was just one. Yeah.
Wow.
But there is like
rare.
the 808, you know, that's kind of, but that's not the same kick pattern that goes through the rest of the track.
And the snare, when I first heard the song, I didn't remember the snare, and then the second time I heard it, I couldn't hear anything but the snare. I don't know why that is, but what was going on with the snare?
A lot of API mid-range. I think I was specifically using the UAD stuff to get
1.5 or 3?
lower.
Oh, 8?
Yeah, more like. But you know, the whole thing. Like, here's the trick. Here's the problem that I have. I want to, and I think you might run into the same thing just because of our musical heritage. We like our snare drums loud, and whenever I go up on the mains and I crank it up, I like for people's eyelashes to kind of bat a little bit every time.
You got to make a
snare.
decision. Either leave the room, turn it down.
Yeah, it's like
a decision is in order if it's done.
You know,
right.
my goal in 2003 would have been for the snare drum to hurt your feelings or something. Now it's a different world. It's driving things differently in a much different way. So the level-wise, it's much more reduced, but EQ-wise, I can do things a little bit more extreme so that they have a pocket that punches even though it's at a lower volume. That's a good challenge. That's a fun challenge to have sometimes. How do I make it sound loud without making it loud?
Would you say, Dee, that back in the day, we want the snare had to convey energy and aggressiveness. Now it has to convey almost a hypnotic quality. So if you kind of overdo it, it becomes monotonous instead of hypnotic.
Well, I mean, we're also dealing with. It's gotten a little bit monotonous. All right, let's make a dance song. 128 BPM, 4 on the floor kick drum. Well, that means you're going to have a snare drum hitting the same time as your kick on the 2 and the 4. So it's like, well, you're going to have to make those 2 elements play with each other well. The kick drum and the snare playing at the same time is going to happen through the entire song. Half the time essentially. So you have to find a way to make sure that they work. I mean, there's this things like, if you're looking for like a wood knock, 600, 800 hertz, you can get some of that out. But if you're looking for more of a well, it depends on what you want. If you want something that's harsh, well, probably more in like the 10K range that's going to really kind of take your head off a little bit more. If you want it to be more like a presence that kind of spits in your face, maybe down to 4K. But as soon as you start messing with these frequencies, make sure you on solo and pay attention to what you're doing, because that'll get you in a lot of trouble.
Did you high pass the snare like around 200?
Whenever I high pass snare drums, it's usually more utilitarian of like nothing below 50 hertz, something like that.
I'm talking about to make it compatible with the kick all the time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Well, I don't roll off a lot of subs off of the snare. I usually just do it so if there is any kind of like rumble or something that's just going to almost subconsciously get in the way of things.
The spatial stuff on the keyboards is almost hooky. It's so good. I love this. What did you use?
Well, and this is love. It's important. Like if you listen to it and you hit the mono button, you will hear some things collapse in a little bit, just a little bit. It's not like, oh man, I lost my main synth. We wanted to make sure that we had a spatial element to it that was going to be cool, but have a certain amount of mono-compatibility just in case, we are in an environment where it's going to be played in
like
something
clubs.
like that. Yeah. But we used several different spatialization tools.
Hold on. I'm feeling Matthew Lane,
The
Dr. MS for
Dr. MS. I will, you know, openly
love
admit,
Matthew.
you know, I mean, I worked on some of the presets of
Yeah, I
that
know.
plugin, so it's close to my heart. I used quite a bit of that. I did use Wave Center on one because
Okay.
I didn't want to get too fancy. I just wanted to take some of the center channel out because I felt like one of the synths was getting in the way of the vocal. And the vocal was kind of up the middle, and I didn't want those things clashing. I also used a Desper spatializer, the joystick unit.
The what?
The Desper spatializer, it's a hardware unit. The 8-channel one, you've got one.
Oh, my spatializer.
Yeah,
the
one of
one with
those.
all the little, I didn't know that was a Desper.
Yeah.
I've owned that thing 20 years.
Yeah.
Dexter Simmons gave me that.
Yeah, I mean, that one's unique because, you know, you can not only do left and right of the speaker, but forward and
front and rear,
backward,
yeah.
and I mean, that's really trippy, you know, and, you know, a lot of times whenever I'm panning things with that, you know, I do check mono compatibility quite a bit. But there's a time and a place for MS processing, and then spatialization. They're different mindsets to me because, you know, I'm more concerned about subtracting things whenever I'm using MS processing, where spatialization, I'm just like, let's move this over.
You know,
here.
maybe you and me and Matthew can do an into the layer on MS processing because it's way more usable than a lot of people think.
Yeah.
And
Well,
you do it really well.
When I came into the industry, when you said MS, you know, technique, I thought you meant the mic technique, and that's as far as it went. The whole world is kind of
Well, the
opened up to
mastering
that
guys,
kind of-
they've
yeah.
been doing it for years.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, it's become way more popular because it's more easily accessible these days than it was back then.
By the way, kudos on the Far East Movement record, and I love that record. And Cheryl Crow record is good.
Cheryl Cole.
Cole, I mean
Yeah.
Crow. Did I say Crow? Cole.
Yeah.
And Usher, the Usher record's good. Man, let's jump in on Scream and Shout. Speaking of Britney,
Yeah.
you ready?
Yeah,
You
let's
got
do
any?
it.
You got any? I hit you through a lot of stuff really fast, but I want to get these records broken down. The thing that caught my attention on that was the effects on Will. Where I rarely hear effects on his vocal, even though you very masterfully tuck them in and massage them. But the effects on that record caught my attention. Do you remember what they were?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's
On Will, not on Britney.
specifically on Will. I mean, there's kind of the similar kind of vein of the rest of the track. You know, I didn't want a lot of these songs to sound so drastically different from the next. I wasn't into that. I wanted this whole record to almost be like you can put it on in a club, listen to it all the way down. I'm sure Will wanted the same thing. So that was kind of a conscious thing. The similar effect of using auto-tune as a harmonizer can really be heard on that track. So if you listen to it, I think you can kind of get a good idea of how that sounds. If you listen to just the left channel and then listen to just the right channel while you're listening to that vocal, you can hear the effect of what's happening there.
The auto-tune effect.
Yeah, yeah.
If I'm asking a question that's getting into some NDA areas, stop me. But what's a starting setting for the auto-tune for that? Because I don't know how to use auto-tune as a harmonizer.
Well, essentially what you do is, you know, using it like a harmonizer, there's a pitch amount that you can have on it. Well, if you just have auto-tune on your vocal and you change that pitch amount, that's going to just change that pitch on that one thing. So if you take your vocal and you mult it 3 ways, and then you pitch shift one differently than another, you're essentially doing what you would have done
So
with
you're
like a 910.
forcing auto-tune to work harder is what you're doing, right?
Well,
With
the settings will be,
pre-pitching it?
essentially the settings are the same, but you're using the pitch offset on the other 2 mults, because it's the same vocal going through every one of them. So you could create a very similar effect, like I said, using a 910, or just using a pitch
How come
plugin.
you didn't share that with me like 5 years ago? Well,
Well,
I got
it's-
why you got to be on my show for I find this
you-
stuff out?
Most people do the same thing with a doubler. It's a little bit
you do
easier.
know you owe me, right?
Okay.
No bloodshed. Easy boys, calm down.
I can still outfish him.
He thinks.
The one thing that caught my attention so dramatically, and you did it artistically and musically, was the transients on the keyboards. Did you add transients to the keyboards, or did you get them that way, or
Yeah.
both?
Both. A lot of them already had it, but then again,
Is that my imagination?
No.
Oh.
Exactly, because we're running into the same thing with. Dun, 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 dun. I mean, that needs to have a lot of attack in it so that it catches your eyes, and you know, what I had kind of envisioned whenever I first heard that song is you're in a nightclub, they're playing their songs, blah, 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 you just got done with your drink, and then that song comes on and it's going to fill up the dance floor. And I've seen it. I've seen that happen specifically with that song. And so, I think between, Will, Brittany, everybody that was involved in the production of that record, they did a really good job making sure that that was something that's going to translate. Now, we send this stuff off to mastering, and we had a lot more headroom, obviously, whenever we started. And then we're pushing to these extreme levels. We're going to lose some of that. And so we did go back and do some augmenting to make sure that that stuff
I love it.
retranslated. Yeah.
I thought it was just musical. When an engineer does technical things and they're musical, that's a good thing. It catches my ear all the time.
But that's, you have to think about stuff like that as an engineer. When you're an engineer and you just listen to a synth and you just think it's a synth, well, you're going to miss the point. If you listen to the synth and go, okay, this is supposed to be the thing that announces we're going to get you on the dance floor to dance with your friends right now, then you will approach it a lot differently than, well, we just want some more present. Let's turn up some 2K on there,
The echo, I know this is kind of silly to isolate one little part, but the echo on the oh yes, that caught my ear. That is so cool.
Yeah.
Don't disappoint me and tell me it was something simple.
It is very simple. But
I said
we're
don't do that.
we're gonna lose it though. I mean, because with the new versions of Pro Tools, I mean, we've been having these issues with some of the plugins getting ported over, and there seems to be this issue with getting Echo Farm over there.
Echo Farm, I'm gonna miss it.
It's a very simple, good sounding damn plugin. We've been using it for a long time for a reason, and that one is a really quick one that you can kind of open up, and if we lose that transitioning over, that's going to be really sad because, it seems to be like, I don't know why for some reason that plugin everybody seems to be scratching their head. Line 6 doesn't, from what I understand, can't update it, and Avid has got the, I don't know, honestly, what's up with it. But I hope they can get that worked out.
On Line 6. I think
Exactly.
I'm gonna talk to Avid
If anybody's watching this, email those people and pressure them to come up with a 64-bit AAX version so that we can keep on using this awesome plugin.
So the setting, what did you do to is it just a preset on?
Yeah, as it comes up, basically you crank the mix 100% because we're using it as an echo throw, and then turning up the drive so you have a little bit of character
so you used
to
the
it.
distortion one.
Yeah. So the drive is where I'm getting some of the distortion. I turn wow and flutter down typically because that it kind of makes things sound wrong and out of tune. And if you're sending a vocal to that, you can run into some real dangerous territory like, especially it's like you auto-tune the vocal and now you're sending it this wow and flutter that's going to mess that up. I usually don't like that. I usually take that stuff out.
We didn't like it when that's all we had. Yeah. So if a kid at home was trying to emulate that sound, what would they use? Just a generic delay plus maybe a guitar amp?
Either like, I mean, if you're talking hardware or software, I mean, software-wise, I would probably use some kind of saturation and just crank the saturation. Guitar amp stuff might be a little bit too extreme.
Oh, okay, like SansAmp or something.
Yeah. We used to use SansAmp quite a bit. I mean, there's a million different ways you can do it. One of the ways that I learned back in the day was you would take a 2290 delay, but instead of turning up the feedback, you would just feed the delay into itself. Bob Brown, engineer, used to do this all the time expertly. And you can get a feedback.
Where Bob Brown was.
Yeah, I learned a lot working with him. And,
me too.
And his philosophy of that was you have much more control over that, and he would roll off something or put something in between it, so during each repetition you would get a different kind of degradation of sound. Yeah. That kind of stuff adds character. It was really cool. Yeah, it's we need more of that. It's like we put a delay on something, and sometimes we're selling ourselves short, or we can put something extra in there.
Yeah, I agree. Another thing that caught my ear was when you take the drums out, when you do a breakdown, you expect certain things to happen, and the reason you're taking the drums out is to enhance the section that's coming up, and you need a reason. Most of the time when people take the drums out, I lose the groove, and you can just in your mind imagine the dance floor starting to sit down during those 16 bars. But masterfully, you kept the groove going in the breakdown in the bridge and near the end of the song. There again, is that what you were given? Did you enhance that moment?
Credit to this has to go to the programmers, and specifically to Will. Every aspect of production has gone over by Will with a fine-tooth comb many, many times, because I don't want to use the term control freak, but he definitely wants to oversee everything.
He's got a real clear vision of what he
exactly.
wants. Always
and,
has.
And I don't, no, it's not my job to get in the way of that,
Right,
you know. So,
precisely.
so whenever he comes in to listen to a mix, I move my chair out of the way so that he can get down and kind of get to business, because it's going to be a lot quicker. And when you're working really fast paced and you're working off your vibe, it's way better to be working quick than to be like, can you turn this vocal up?
Yeah, it's brutal.
Oh yeah, oh that's too much.
Yeah.
Can you turn that?
Yeah.
You're going to lose things in translation. So ultimately, Will, I think it's the main credit for being able to do the song structure in a way, because you have this driving keyboard part that goes over there. So whenever the drums do drop out, you still have a rhythmic thing. It's not like blum, blum. It's not like he went out and did all these crazy piano chords in those parts. If he had done that, we would have lost that energy and everybody would have went to the bar to refill their drinks. So
It's brilliant. Hold on a second. My producer is telling me something in my earphone. Oh, TMZ. Yeah, gotcha. Somebody at TMZ wanted to know, why did Brittany use a British accent on that song?
the song originally had some different vocalists, and we had tried a couple different collaborations along the way. Going back to this nonlinear way of working, I had mixed that song I don't know how many times. So we mix the song, and then we have somebody else come in and work on it, mix it. These are very difficult things to work out as a mixer, because as a mix engineer, whenever you finish your mix, you really want to it's done. It's not going to be any better than this. So anything that we change from this point forward is destroying perfection.
Yeah.
And if you're confident about what you're doing, you should feel that way. And when you do that, and then they change all of the drums, you're like, well, wait a second, this doesn't make sense now. So you need to figure out ways to work that. So you do have to be forward thinking about a lot of this stuff and anticipate and plan just in case something is going to happen. And if you know that something's going to happen, you prepare for that.
When you're doing stuff for Will, for instance, are you getting a lot of label interaction in terms of notes and stuff like that? None whatsoever.
Zero. We used to back in the day.
Right.
Will's going to get his way.
Because you
anyway.
earn that, and then,
Yeah.
and that's freeing for you. It's you and the artist.
There are pros and there are cons. The pros to it are pretty obvious. So yeah, we have freedom and we don't have to answer to a bunch of suits or whatever. I'm really fortunate that the majority of the A&R people and the business people that do come through either know when it's not their place to comment on something, or they actually do know their stuff. Some of my favorite A&R people over the course of time come from a musical background. Really people in the industry.
Yep.
Jimmy Iovine was an engineer.
Yep.
Ron Fair
Ron Fair.
has musical background, and
Yep.
these people, they always seem to have a leg up on everybody else who just got out of law school, in my opinion. I don't mean any disrespect to anybody outside of law school.
Yeah,
There's a
you
difference.
mean total respect.
Everybody can, have an ear, and whenever I think you and I have done this, where you finish mixing a song, and it's like, okay, the producer's happy with it, you're happy with it, the artist is happy with it, and then there's somebody in the back of the room, either the assistant or somebody's girlfriend or somebody's boyfriend or whatever. Hey, you hear anything? And sometimes that's a dangerous question to ask. But every now and again, they're like, that one triangle part sounds kind of weird. And you go back and you're like, man, how did we all miss that? 5 people in the room, but that one person picked it out, So I'm not afraid of getting opinions from people, but with Will, it's great because he can be really,
Yep.
he can flourish a lot better that way.
David, tee up your arm for Batter's Box.
Okay.
The other thing I was going to ask you was, in that space, when you have the relationships that you have over time, you're oftentimes not only dealing with the mix, you're also kind of protecting the family jewels and secrets and stuff that goes on. You have to be an insider, but objective.
You start to, where the bodies are buried,
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's really tricky because there's pros and there's cons to it. For example, if I'm working with an artist and they don't answer to the label, but the label is the one that's paying for the project, they're going to remember whenever I didn't send them the track because I said I didn't get approval from producer X or artist X or whatever. They're going to remember that the next time that I work on a different artist on that label.
Absolutely.
And usually it's not an issue, but it does come up sometimes where it's like, sometimes it's like, I'm paying your check, you got to send this up.
Yeah.
I have somebody else that I have to answer to. And whenever people pitch you against each other, I usually side with the artist. I find that's the best way to, or the producer, depending on the dynamic.
And it keeps employment going.
Yeah, exactly.
On average, how long does it take you to not start to finish, but the amount of hours you put on these two mixes? I'm guessing 16 to 18 hours on these mixes? If you subtract all the in-between dead space?
It's a real tricky question to answer because
impossible, 'cause they're
we've
not
bounced
linear.
around so much. Yeah, and so if you added everything up, I mean, it's difficult to say because it almost invalidates the question. Because if you say that, well, okay, I mixed the first version of it, say, in 3 to 5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then I spent more time and more time and more time. Well, then it makes it sound like I spent 3 days mixing a song, but I actually spent 3 days mixing a bunch of different songs,
Right.
just different versions of them. So it's hard for me to answer that specifically to this
These days,
project.
the world we live in now, it's just a different.
Yeah,
it really is an irrelevant question.
On average, I usually say a day and a half per mix. Like whenever I'm doing stuff at my own studio, whenever I don't have attended sessions, usually a day and a half, just to be, and that's usually it, and it's done. With Will, we go back and do a lot of revisions and stuff. And sometimes he'll get an idea from hearing something on the radio and say, man, we can make this better by doing this, and there you go. And then sometimes you miss it. Sometimes you change something and you're like, man, I really missed that one part that we had in there. You have to find a way to separate yourself from your vision because now you need to make sure that you're on point with the artist's vision. It's tricky sometimes, it's hard.
Okay, stop stalling. I'm going to clean your clock on this.
Batter's box time. Let's roll it.
Let's do it.
Batter's up.
You ready?
Throw the first pitch, sir.
We're going to do something a little different today, so I need a little bit of, I want to just let everybody know it's going to be a tiny bit different today.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to say the word, sub.
Gonna say certain areas, full tech.
Okay, 200 in the bass.
Filter bank.
10K high end on a vocal.
Mog audio, EQ.
Taking 2K out.
Either GML or filter bank.
Surgery on the low end.
GML.
Okay. Knock on the kick.
API 550, 560. Did I cheat?
No, I was trying to make a joke. De-esser.
The Massey de-esser.
D-Mud.
D-Mud.
Manny has a D-Mud plug-in, by the way.
Filter bank.
Filter bank.
Yeah.
The high and low end on a stereo bus.
I'm gonna go Mog audio again.
Okay. Clarity.
Clarity. The really an A Design's hammer and nail together.
Oh, Peter Montesi is the best.
Yeah. And Dave Hill.
Oh, Dave Hill. Okay, last one, sidechain. First time ever in a batter's box, by the way, sidechain.
The Vengeance Sound has a sidechain plugin that sidechain. I forgot the exact name of it, but the sidechain plugin from Vengeance. It's incredible. Really good.
I give up. The man's a genius. He didn't know this. I snuck this in on him. That's how good he is.
Yeah, no, it was dependable. Just steady and sure, pow, 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 pow. So, but he's a returning champ.
Yeah, that's
why he earned
true.
it.
That's true.
Let's segue and introduce our man in the corner. Chongor has just been really incredible.
Chongor's on fire.
Chongor's on fire.
Chongor has been helping me out in the studio a little bit too.
Listen, we have a great crew of people all the time, and we have some folks we've gotten to know. We asked them to do extra stuff, and Chongor's one of them. There's a few others. So Chongor, how are you?
Good. We got some great questions today. You guys are going to like these.
Fire away, sir.
This first one's from Angel Diaz. How do you use mono, and are you using it to check levels, and what are you trying to learn from checking mixes in mono?
For me, I check mono mainly to make sure that things aren't going to disappear. If you understand what phase and polarity are, anybody who's mic'd a drum kit needs to understand how important the mono button is, because just time delays are going to end up making things not translate very well. There are times whenever mono can help you fix those issues if they sound like space issues, but they can also be attack issues as well that end up fixing themselves whenever you correct that type of stuff. Whenever I'm spatializing, it's important for me to check in mono so that I don't get myself into an area where I've gone over the deep end. Levels, it doesn't really affect me in that way, except for the changes that might happen if I'm spatializing
What's acceptable?
something.
If the volume in mono goes down 10%, 20, 30, 40, when do you correct it?
Acceptable, everybody's gauging is differently. Acceptable would be, whenever I said hit the mono button whenever you're listening to that mix. Unacceptable for me would be the Good Levin track by Blackstreet when you hit mono and the Rhodes completely disappears.
That's the
or
poster
the-
child for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure it was intentional.
Yeah. Teddy's a genius.
Chungar, you got another one?
This next one backpacks off the first question. This one's from Bill Kamek. When you're mixing in a main element of a song that's panned hard left and right, do you often mix in a copy of the signal down the center to enforce mono compatibility?
Shout out to Bill, by the way.
Absolutely.
I don't do that. It's very rare that I do that. The only time that I might do something like that is if I have a bass that I think is really wide, and if I do it, I'm usually doing something a little bit more creative on top of it where I will sum the difference, I'll sum both of them, run it through some type of distortion to add coloration, and then put that up the middle so that I know that it's coming through in a more, in a better way.
One more, Chungar.
This one's from Fuser Productions. What are some of your most used plugins, and more importantly, how did you come up with the name Pay-Per-View?
You go to his website and he explains it.
Yeah, I actually do explain that on the website.
Yep.
Pay-per-view is just a play on words, pay-per-view, VU meters anyway. That's about as far as that goes.
I think I came up with that.
The plugins, I've been using the hell out of the UAD stuff a lot lately. I use the Dr. MS processing a lot. It's really important these days to use those type of plugins so that whenever you're using synthesizers, you can make sure that you get things that are spaced correctly in the sound staging. Filter bank I use quite a bit. I've been using the Moog Audio a lot. I just love the Airband. It brightens things up in such a beautiful
Cliff
way.
Mogg's one of our favorites.
Man, just takes the veil off of things.
He's a musician and an engineer, and his stuff just works.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a new 500 series EQ that's
I've
coming
played
out
with it.
soon.
It's good.
I
It's great.
can't wait to try it out.
great.
I'm real excited about that. The UAD stuff, I'm just going to put a blanket and say all the UAD stuff.
Have you played with the new Millennium?
I got it. I haven't really put it through its paces yet.
Have you played with the Ocean Way plugin?
Yeah, I use the Ocean
I
Way
used to-
stuff.
I'm using that a lot.
Yeah, for specifically for live instruments that you want to have.
Yeah.
Man, this sounds like it was recorded in a room that was made of cardboard and carpeting. It's great to use things like that to kind of make things more live. The isotope stuff. I use all of that stuff really well. I mean, I have all of the.
Do you have
plugins
Ozone
listed.
7 yet?
Ozone 8.
No, I got 9.
But
I meant to say 9.
but in 10 you have to wear 3D glasses.
Just get 11.
out
You
at
don't-
you.
and 11, you get laser surgery, and you don't need that.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, I've been using a lot of the stock stuff, and Pro Tools 11 is incredible. It really is good. We just need to make sure that the plugins get ported over so that we can work the way we're.
12's even better.
Okay.
I'll hit you to that.
The hour goes fast. Dill? Pleasure,
Thanks,
man.
sir.
Listen,
Appreciate
just
it.
for the fact that stress, you got it, cool. The fact that at least once a year somebody comes to our show and wears a tie, so it's good to have you here as usual. We got plans for you. Gotta come back. Always appreciate it. Just real quickly before Dave says goodbye, we've had just a studio full of friends, and one of our early compatriots, which you guys know, Zan Nakari, he's here. We love Zan.
Zan.
Zan's
Where's
here over
Zan?
the corner. So we want to give him a shout out. Yeah, come on up, Zan. Come right over here.
Zan was our first corner office guy.
There you are, right here.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Not only our first corner office guy was at the inception of the idea, sitting in my house, and we were looking at a coffee table with a piece of paper on it. He's back from Abu Dhabi. He's a talented guy.
Dubai.
Excuse me. He's back from Dubai. Absolutely. So, and speaking of Dubai, why don't you say goodbye?
Goodbye. Hey guys, I don't know quite how to say it without getting emotional, but I'm sitting across from a cat that I just admired and have known for a while. We're from the same part of Florida, and such great information, completely and totally shared with us uninhibited-wise. I learned a lot. I think it points out the need to have a support team around you, and people you can share things with and grow together. When I first started out in Atlanta, Larry Turner helped me a lot. We learned everything together. It was a wonderful thing. And if you don't have any friends,
Come
go to
Gear Expo.
Pensado's place.
Come to Gear Expo.
Wear a pork chop, at least the dog will play with you. But Pensado Students is a great place. Bill Kamek
Yes.
had a question today, and he's one of those cats that's there to help, and I'm really proud of the whole community, but particularly Dylan today. It was so much fun listening to him, and we'll see you Saturday, okay?